Hello Internet, and welcome to Ramblings of a Madman. I'm Alex, and I'm joined by Sean and Stuart for a shallow and probably uninformed dive into the world of unexplained mysteries, conspiracy theories, and the supernatural. How are we all doing today?
Great as always. Stu's got a new mic.
I have got a new mic. Hopefully it sounds much better.
No, you still sound
I'm
dog shit.
super excited. I've been literally waiting for how long's it been since we recorded the last episode? That long to use it.
Awesome. It's good to
The
be
time
back.
has come.
Hopefully it sounds okay. Imagine now the massive anticlimax, but it sounds terrible.
We'll see in the edit.
We will.
Okay, so before we start with today's topic, I'd like to shill for a bit. This show is available pretty much everywhere you can listen to podcasts. We recently put it up on Google Podcasts since they now take podcasts in the UK. If you like what we do and you want to be notified the second that we upload a new episode, then subscribe or follow us on whatever platform you desire. Or all of them. We won't complain. If we're not on your chosen platform, let us know in the comments or on Twitter at Rome Podcast, and we'll look into putting it on there. Also, we would greatly appreciate it if you would rate the show on Apple Podcasts and or give us a review. Not only does this give us feedback on the show, but it also makes it easier for us to be found in the endless sea that is internet podcasting. Okay, shill over. I'm done.
Finally.
Be ashamed of yourself.
I feel dirty. I need a shower.
You should.
Right, let's get to the reason we're here. The mystery/conspiracy theory that I've got for you today. This story was recommended to me by a listener, and I'm glad they did because it's thoroughly weird and it's perfect for this show.
Yes, we like weird.
This is the mystery of the Oakville Blobs.
What a start! I already like it.
Good start.
You said blob, blob, right? BLOB, not blog, not like an internet blog.
No, it's weirder than an internet blog. It's a blob.
Oh.
Okay, so
I'm intrigued.
we haven't moved very far from the last episode. We're still in Washington, in the US. So at 3 a.m. on the 7th of August 1994, a heavy rainfall blanketed a 20 square mile area of Oakville, Washington. However, residents were alarmed when they realised that it wasn't just water that was falling, but blobs of a translucent gelatinous substance.
Okay, I'm going to struggle to not laugh in this episode.
Yeah.
Officer David Lacey was on patrol when the downpour began. When he turned his windscreen wipers on to remove the rain, the goo smeared across his windscreen, obscuring his vision. Stopping at a gas station, he put on a pair of latex gloves and began to manually remove the goo. He described it as almost like jello in your hand, and you could pretty much squish it through your fingers. A woman named Dottie Hearn also described her experience with the substance. After the rain had stopped, she stepped outside and noticed that the goo covered her farm in small blobs, half the size of grains of rice. Initially thinking they were hailstones, she touched them, but realised it was a gelatinous-like material. Across town, 77-year-old Beverly Roberts also encountered the blobs. She said that she found 2 gallons of the stuff sitting on the side of the road, with a frog and a raven both dead a few feet away. She put on latex gloves and collected a sample to study at home. By the afternoon that day, a number of residents had fallen ill. They described having difficulty breathing, extreme vertigo, blurred vision, and an increasing sense of nausea. Beverly Roberts suffered from vertigo so extreme she had to crawl outside to her car. She managed to drive herself to the doctors by concentrating on the lines on the road. She spent nearly a week in the hospital. An hour after first noticing her symptoms, Dottie was found sprawled on the bathroom floor, conscious but very weak. Her daughter, Sonny Barclift, described her as feeling cold and sweat-drenched and looking pale. She was moved to the hospital where she stayed for 3 days and was diagnosed with a severe inner ear infection. So these blobs aren't very friendly.
No.
They're infecting everyone.
It was definitely the blobs that caused it.
So the story would lead you to believe, so far,
Right.
in my dramatic retelling of it.
So yeah, I don't know where to start. So the blobs that you're on about are half the size of a grain of rice.
That's what one person described them as. I did watch so this is from the show Unsolved Mysteries, like the old 80s and 90s show, and there was a reconstruction with the police officer, and it just looked like they poured like grey goo on his windscreen.
Okay.
The thing that immediately springs to mind with this is, when you think of the little silica beads you get when you buy like a pair of shoes or a backpack, inside it, are we thinking that they have that kind of appearance to them, small kind of beady kind of looking things in terms of that kind of size?
We've solved the mystery. There was a silica
Factory that blew up.
No, a plane transporting it over Washington, and then it dropped it.
Oh no! What really happened is the pilot jumped out of it after robbing it.
Robbing all the silica beads.
So it's a very loosely veiled link to a previous episode.
So here's what happens.
Only about 40 years later.
It's the byproduct of time travel from a car.
Okay.
I'm trying to reference I can't remember the specifics from the other one.
Keep going. I'm losing my brain.
Consider it lubed.
Okay.
Oh fuck! That's going to be the final edit, isn't it?
I'm going to isolate that now and make a clip on Twitter.
Consider it lubed. I have no idea where to start with this. So
I'll continue with the story.
Go on.
Okay, so Barclift, having previously worked as a director of occupational safety and health for the Arizona branch of the National Safety Council, thought there might be a link between her mother's illness and the strange material, so she collected a sample and sent it to the hospital. Dr. David Little, who treated Hearn, expressed doubt that Hearn's symptoms were due to the blobs, but nonetheless agreed to have the substance examined. A lab technician found that it contained human white blood cells, but couldn't identify what it was or why it fell from the sky.
Oh.
The sample was then sent to the Washington State Department of Health for further study. Mike McDowell, a microbiologist at the department, discovered that the goo was teeming with 2 species of bacteria, one of which is found in the human digestive system. Mike Osweiler, of the Washington State Department of Ecology's Hazardous Materials Spill Response Unit. Oh, these are big names, aren't they?
Big titles.
Big titles.
Good effort to get that one out in one take.
They're not as big when you type them out, but when you say them, it's a mouthful. Mike Osweiler also examined the substance. Upon further examination by his staff, it was reported that the blobs contained cells with no nuclei, which Osweiler noted is something that human white cells do have. So, according to him, these aren't human cells. They're biological, but not human.
Sure.
I also read that a year after the event, Dottie Hearn sent a sample of the material that she had stored in her freezer to private research company Amtest Laboratories. While analysing it, Tim Davis believed he saw a eukaryotic cell. These are complex cells with a definable nucleus which are present in most living creatures. So it's confirmed that the blobs consist of biological material, but we've got conflicting information on whether or not human cells are present.
Yeah, at this point we basically know that it's something organic. It's a naturally occurring microorganism of some kind, but the debate over whether it's human or not.
Yeah. So the blobs fell multiple times over the next few weeks, but since this story has been exaggerated over the years, I've seen conflicting reports on a number of times. As I mentioned before, the TV show Unsolved Mysteries claims that the goo rained 6 times over Oakville. However, multiple newspaper articles that I've read reported that it only happened twice. I'm more inclined to believe those sources rather than the dramatic retelling.
Mm-hmm.
Following the incident, however, doctors saw a spike in patients diagnosed with inner ear problems and major respiratory issues. Beverly Roberts also said that everyone in the town contracted a flu-like illness that lasted 2 to 3 months. The blobs also affected the local wildlife, with animals supposedly dying almost immediately after eating the substance. Roberts said that 12 of her friend's animals died soon after it came. It was also reported that Sonny Barcliff's 8-week-old kitten had died after contact with the blobs, but this was following a battle with severe intestinal problems prior to the incident. So, possibly due to the intestinal problems, possibly because it touched the blobs. We got some circumstantial evidence from Beverly Roberts that some of her friend's animals died. She also said that people got a flu-like illness.
Yeah, you mentioned as well that when the rain initially fell, that there was a raven and a toad that were found next to it. So presumably they'd eaten them straight away and they died. Yeah.
So it's like coincidental, isn't it? Like it.
Yeah, it could be.
Potentially that it could just be literally that they all died after eating it because they already had previous. But no.
It could be coincidence that they happened to die immediately after eating the substance. Yes, it could be. You're right.
So this is like real and recorded.
Yeah.
Because 1994 is not that long ago. I was born in 1994.
We were born then. We were all born then.
Yeah, all of us were. Well, no.
Yeah,
no, you weren't, Alex.
Yes, he was.
No, 7th of August, you said.
Oh, yeah. I was born that year, but I wasn't born
Yeah.
before this happened.
Maybe you're a byproduct of the goo.
Oh my god. What if? I've returned.
We won't go into that subject too much.
It was a great conception. I'm going to do it.
Return to finish off Oakville once and for all. Yeah, but so one of the sources I used was the Washington Post, which is a pretty reputable newspaper. So I found the paper from like the week after or something like that, and they were talking about the lab results from Mike Osweiler. So it did definitely happen. Whether it happened to such an extent and as dangerous as it sounds is up for debate. But I've sort of merged the documentary retelling with newspaper articles.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably somewhere in between.
Yeah. The interesting thing about it, what you're saying, so from a clinical point of view, it seems as if people were manifesting themselves as having severe inner ear infections, the kind of ones that cause you to have vertigo, like your seasickness or the room spinning one.
Mm-hmm.
So most of those infections typically are viral infections, but if they've had a look at these under a microscope and found them to be like eukaryotic cells, then that doesn't fit with a viral infection. So it very much a case of sounds like this is either some sort of weird, far spread bacterial infection that multiple people have picked up, but admittedly in the same place. But when they tested the goo, you said that... hang on, just remind me, sorry. At the start, you said that the first guy who tested them said that they looked like human white blood cells.
Yeah, a unnamed lab technician in the hospital.
But then that was countered by this microbiologist, is that right?
Yeah, so the unnamed lab technician said there was human white blood cells in it. This was then backed up by Mike McDowell, a microbiologist at the Washington State Department for Health. He also said there was human cells in it, but then Mike Osweiler's team said there wasn't.
Right. And you said that there were two types of gut bacteria in it as well?
Yeah, he says it was teamed with two species of bacteria, one of which is found in the human digestive system.
Okay. Do you know which one it was?
No, the paper didn't say.
Okay.
Right, I just want to point out you're giving us the information, Alex. Mm-hmm. Stu, you're analysing it from a very well-educated medical background, and I'm just going, intestine bacteria, that's disgusting. Because I have nothing else to comment on.
Yeah, so breathing problems are also a symptom. Is that caused by bacteria, or is that viral as well?
Couldn't tell you, mate.
Fair enough, yeah. I mean,
we'll never know then.
It could be either. So there are lots of bugs that are in the body that can cause different infections based on where they are. So like some organisms that cause skin infection could be the same ones that cause like a chest infection, depending on where they've got in. And a lot of bugs are quite opportunistic. So it might well be that if people were already unwell from something else, that they might have been a bit more susceptible to like a more common infection. So for example, like obviously I'm not relating to this case, but if there'd been a town that had like a well that had been poisoned with like heavy metals or something, they might all be really unwell, and then like a very opportunistic bug might have killed them. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking in this scenario, it sounds like it might be something similar. Everyone's been made ill by something, and then something else has jumped on board. But yeah, I don't know. The goo makes no sense.
The two people I did cite were old people as well, so they would be more susceptible to getting ill, and also to the goo. Supposedly. We don't know. We don't know how the goo works. We don't know what the goo wants. Oh, the pause before the laughter. I don't know if that was a lag or just you like trying to comprehend what I just said.
I was like, wait, what? I like the way Alex is saying this. It's like he understands the goo.
The best thing, I kind of wish we were on video because you should have seen my face. It was just getting more and more contorted with confusion. I was just like, eh?
Okay, so that's the whole story. Nice and short one.
What? I thought this was going to be like... And then they found out a local factory blew up and it was raining goo from some silicon plant or something.
No.
That's it.
No, these are unexplained mysteries, all right?
No.
We can't come to a conclusion.
Is that seriously the whole
That's
mystery?
the whole story. But I've got theories for us to discuss.
Okay.
Thank God for that, really, because I don't think we're going to come up with much.
No, calm down. You have to fill.
I've got a few ideas, but I want to hear the theories first.
Yeah, so the initial theory proposed by David Lale, who was the doctor, remember, was that the substance was drops of concentrated fluid waste from an airplane toilet. This is based on the finding of human white blood cells in the jelly.
That's not poo.
This would explain why the material was so hazardous to the health of the Oakville residents and wildlife.
Yeah.
However, there are a number of problems with this theory.
Years of Mile High Club. Oh.
I don't think it builds up for years.
Well, depends on the plane, doesn't it?
I guess so. It wasn't.
I'm stretching. Yeah.
So the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, the regulations require that the waste of airplanes is to be dyed blue. This occurs due to the mixing of waste with blue disinfectant within it.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, airlines are not allowed to dump their waste tanks mid-flight, and pilots have no mechanism by which to do so. Leaks do occur sometimes, however, resulting in the formation of something called blue ice, because the mixture freezes at high altitude.
Okay, so I was... two things then. So it's similar to the sort of thing that if anyone's ever been to a caravan, if they've got a portable caravan, not the opposite of a static caravan, portable.
A caravan.
Sure.
But all right, you can get a static caravan. Yeah, okay,
yeah, that's a caravan.
The toilets in that. The toilets in that must use the same stuff. It's the same sort of blue stuff. It gets rid of odors. It makes it like safer to handle. You're obviously not still in a tank and stuff, but. So that's fair enough. But then the other thing I'm thinking of, you said that it lasted more than 1 day. So unless when it's been released and it's stayed in the clouds at high altitude and it's slowly been... I just feel like that's a lot. What sort of... You said it covered like 20 square kilometers.
Yeah, reports were across 20 square kilometers of the area. But it wasn't... I don't imagine it was like a full sheet across the whole area. It's probably like isolated incidences of it.
Yeah, but even then, like, was there enough? Because there was enough of this goo noticed, right? Was there enough that would have been dropped from a plane? Like, would a plane have been able to hold that much that would have caused multiple rainfall, whatever?
Well, I don't know. It must have been... Because it happened on multiple days over the month, so it must have happened from multiple planes. Or it got trapped in the clouds, like you said, but I don't know how that would work.
Well, if it froze, it's the same way clouds float in my head.
Okay, here we go. Explain clouds to me, Sean.
No, because once again, I need to make the comment that I am not professionally educated in clouds. I'm not a cloud biologist. I'm not a cloud physicist. I'm not going to be able to tell you how clouds work, but they float in the sky somehow.
It's magic.
There's another episode there somewhere.
Oh, dear.
And okay, breathe. Right, I don't like that theory. I'm just trying to justify it and back it up somehow. The idea that the moisture in the cloud stays in the air because of the heat and whatever, and then you're saying that it's getting to a certain altitude and then it's freezing, it's into blue ice. But then it makes sense that it might fall with the rain, because that's how acid rain happens, right? That's exactly right. The sky get polluted by either toxins or just pollutants. Look at these big words, and then. That's what happens with acid rain. And the same with the nuclear bomb, actually. Toxic fallout rain. Was that correct? Or was that just toxic fallout?
Sounds
right. But I'm sure it does get into the rain after that as well. And that's how it spreads so far from the initial thingy point. So in my head, it makes sense. Just the fact that there's so much of it. You're saying it might be from multiple planes. I don't see how... especially if you're saying that they don't dump it, which is a nightmare I've had for a while, actually, thinking, well, hang on, where did the poo go? But then that wasn't a bird. But for it to accidentally happen multiple times over a couple of days, causing it to have that fault in the same specific area.
Well, follow me here, right? I'm going to paint you a picture. It's the same plane taking the same route over multiple weeks in the same month, and it's got the same issue with it, and they don't know about it yet.
Okay.
That to me makes a lot of sense, because what you're trying to think of is there being the same leak. The only issue that I have with that is that wouldn't you expect this to be reported in other places as well? I know obviously we're saying a 20 square kilometre area is quite a large area, but presumably that's not the only landmass, or the flight doesn't just encompass 20 square kilometres. Unless it's a case of that it's a really short flight, and by the time they reach their peak height where perhaps this problem is accentuated, but then as they're descending, you lose the problem. That's a good point.
Maybe as you get to a certain point, the pressure will change. Maybe it's the pressure that was causing the fault.
Yeah, like it might be a case of it's while the plane is actually reaching its height. So it might be that at a certain point over a certain area of land,
every time it takes off or lands,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's why it's distributed in the way it is.
Then, was there any reports then of... come on, it's been almost... Hang on.
Do the maths.
How old are you?
Almost 30 years. Oh, yeah, 26 years. Oh, that's embarrassing. It's been over 25 years. How old are you, Sean? I was trying to do like... Oh, fuck. I just give up on this episode straight away.
The goo is taking over you.
The goo. I don't know. I feel like by this point, after this much time, we've heard with other stuff, like with the DB Cooper thing, they found mad, the algae and stuff on the notes. Yeah, I feel like by now someone would have noticed that the plane was wrong after a point because it stopped.
Yeah, but would they want to disclose that information?
Oh, yeah, okay, here we go. This is my tactic. Blame the government for hiding everything. That's why it hasn't been found.
But you're making the assumption, though, that they would have had something to hide. Like, if you think there's been a faulty... like, say there's a faulty tank leak. That's quite a significant public health issue and associated with a lot of litigation kind of stuff, particularly when you're thinking of America. Like, you think that would be... There would be some cases of it, like some sort of person would have sought to get some sort of claim out of this because they're unwell. Like, you can imagine people, that baby that sadly passed away.
It was a kitten.
Oh.
So still a baby. But...
Well, I suppose, yeah. Wait, I thought you said it was a baby that had the intestinal problem.
No, it was a kitten.
Oh, right, okay. Well, that's mean.
Pretty sure I said kitten.
Yeah, I think you did, actually, because now you've said it, I remember it. For some reason, I had the fact that it was a baby in my head, but never mind. That poor baby kitten, it died. Well, yeah, I suppose you might not care as much about a public health scandal from a kitten. From a kitten, though, compared to a human, like, you can see why people might be like, oh my god, my baby's bad. Yeah. I need to take it to the hospital.
Yeah, I agree the kitten wouldn't care as much.
Yeah, I mean, it's dead, so it won't know.
The kitten lacks the ability to make lawsuits.
It does.
Okay, so shall I disprove this theory a little bit more?
The way you just... Right, I need to get off this topic straight away before someone doesn't laugh.
No, that was my comedic timing. It made you laugh.
It was perfect.
It was good. Perfect. Okay, let's disprove the airplane theory a bit more. So, blue ice impacts do happen. They have happened in the past. There's a whole Wikipedia page on blue ice impacts. And they show that in such events as this, the ice remains frozen until it impacts the ground. And it can and has caused serious injury and property damage.
Oof. So it would have been more like heavy hail.
Yes. But I'm picturing like blue ice spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Like piercing someone's skull from above. The Oakville Blobs, therefore, couldn't have been airplane waste because they weren't frozen on contact with the ground. Unless there was some sort of like chemical shenanigans going on in the sky.
But then couldn't it be a case that they were initially frozen and then as they've descended towards the Earth and they presumably have warmed up, that they have then turned back into liquid?
Yeah, it's possible, but I'm just saying that previous examples of blue ice impacts, that hasn't happened, it's stayed frozen the whole time.
Was it hotter?
I mean, it was raining, so I imagine not.
Water makes ice melt quicker.
Sure.
It does. That's why defrosting something in like a bowl of water or something defrosts it quicker.
But then explain to me how hot water makes ice cubes quicker.
No.
I am not an ice cube biologist.
No, for the second time this episode, I have to legally declare that I'm not. No,
I thought you were going to say, no, actually, I am then for a second.
Well, actually. No, that is when you boil it, and because the impurities have been taken out of it, right?
I mean, I really didn't. It was genuinely quite a closed question and rhetorical, but never mind.
Don't do that to me. Okay, I don't like that theory anyway. It doesn't.
Yeah,
there's a few different things to. Okay, but it's the best we've got at the moment.
So far.
The one thing it does explain, though, is why you would find gut bacteria in the samples.
Yes.
So that's one thing that it does tie up.
But why would there not be fecal matter? And why wouldn't it be a bit brown? Because, like, you said it was like a translucent white. Am I correct?
Yeah, the blob was like a translucent colour. Like a grey white.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, the actual blue stuff, it is blue.
Yeah, it's very blue.
It's like a very, very, very blue.
It's so you can see if it's leaking or not.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that...
To make the counter-argument, though, sorry to interrupt, to make the counter-argument, would it have been blue then? Would it be the same substance that we're using now then, 27 years ago?
Yeah, it was. Because,
exactly the same.
Because at the time...
It wasn't like they didn't use silica, so it couldn't be like it was mistaken for silica gel.
Why would you use silica?
Well, just because it's water absorbent.
And Stuart, for the first time this episode, has to make the legal comment. I am not a silica biologist.
The theory, as I said, was made by David Little, who was the doctor who first treated Hearn, and he reached out to the FAA to find out whether
okay, fair enough.
Blue ice can be like dropped from planes and stuff like that, and they explained that they put this blue stuff in it and they can't drop it from the plane and the pilot has no way to do it.
Yeah.
I imagine he talks like a HR person, probably. Right, so we don't like that one. We'll move on to the most popular explanation for the Oakville Blobs. This is a thing called star jelly, and the theory is that they are star jelly formed as a result of military activity. So star jelly is a translucent greyish-white gelatinous substance that evaporates shortly after having fallen. There have been reports of star jelly for centuries, with the earliest mentions going back to the 13th century. According to folklore, they are deposited on the earth during meteor showers, but they may be material vomited up by animals such as frog spawn. So if you imagine like a bird eating frog spawn and then puking it up later on.
Got you.
That's a lot of birds, though.
That is a lot of birds, but it might be the time of year for the bird vomit time. The general theory regarding the Oakville Blobs is that practice bombing runs had accidentally destroyed a school of jellyfish and sent their remains into the atmosphere, where they rained down 50 miles inland.
What?
Oh my god, this is the best theory ever.
Stay with me. While the Air Force confirms that they were doing practice bombing runs over the Pacific Ocean in August 1994, they deny knowledge of the substance or any involvement in creating or dispersing it. Although technically possible, the distance at which the remains travelled makes this theory improbable. The jelly rain also occurred a number of times, so the remains would have had to have been stored in the atmosphere somehow, and there was also no report of a rotting smell which jellyfish material would probably produce. So that's a bit out there, but it is the most popular theory for some reason.
What? Is that because it's so ludicrous? Everyone's
I
just
imagine
like,
so.
Oh yeah, it must be right.
And also because they asked the Air Force about it, and they were like, we deny any involvement in this happening. It makes it seem more sketchy.
Right, they were definitely involved. They were definitely involved. Because the correct answer to that question is, what the hell are you talking about? We have not blown up any jellyfish.
There are protected species here in Washington.
No, that's BS. Complete bullshit.
You don't want to debate it?
It's my favourite, but no.
The plane one, which we talked about for ages.
Right, okay. My main thing I was thinking of when you were saying that is, why was it so potentially, because it's not proven, harmful to people or living things? Yes, okay, if you eat a jellyfish, it's not going to go down well. But would it cause vertigo? Would it give a lot of stuff.
The theory is that, as Stuart mentioned, there's like a bug going round, and they happen to attribute it to this unlikely event.
So you're saying that it was coincidental?
Yes, according to this theory.
The thing is, though,
possible.
This is so strange. It doesn't really explain. It doesn't really explain the symptoms. Why would there be?
I literally just said that the symptoms are unrelated. They're like a separate bug sort of thing.
No. But what I mean is, sorry. What I mean was the symptoms in the animals, though. Like, why would the animals die of it?
There's also a bug going around for the animals.
But
no, that's stretching a bit too far.
And or the woman saying the animals died is lying to get on TV.
Well, maybe
there is that, yeah.
Because you would think if there wasn't, obviously, I'm going to make a bold statement here, but I have never seen an animal cook another animal to eat it. They tend to eat them raw, as far as I can tell.
That's a lie. We're animals, we cook.
Okay, fair enough.
I've got him there.
A bird or a frog spit roast. Well, maybe not.
Don't say spit roast.
Maybe I won't use that phrase. Backtrack. A bird and a frog.
Video.
Link me later.
Yeah, a bird and a frog cooking. Okay, do you know what? I'm just going to stop here.
Okay, so we don't like that one either. We think it's amazing and funny, but we don't think it's likely, right?
No.
So let's get a bit more specific. So there's a specific form of star jelly called nostoc. This is a genus of cyanobacteria that typically forms gelatinous colonies. When on the ground, nostoc colonies are typically not seen, but after rainfalls they swell into a jelly-like mass which was once thought to have fallen from the sky. So perhaps the residents simply noticed these colonies after the rain fell and came to the conclusion that it has rained goo.
I like that theory, because that's like, what are they called? Is it Orbeez? The little things, the little like plastic...
Oh, the toys.
Yeah.
The toys, yeah, that swell up when they absorb water. Yeah. It's that kind of phenomena, isn't it, that you're describing? That makes sense.
Was that video where they put loads of them down a drain or something?
Yep, in the swimming pool.
It's hilarious.
It's a hilarious video, yeah. The guy's such a moron, but he's like, oh my God, I can't believe I blocked my toilet with them. It's like, really? Yeah, that theory, that kind of makes sense, because that would be something that was already there. It's a bacterium, so I don't know how pathogenic that is, but that would make sense in terms of potentially animals, kittens, humans potentially becoming unwell from being in contact with it, particularly if there's like a local source of it where maybe they've originated from, and it happens to be that they've been spread around elsewhere and you've just noticed them where they've spread rather than where they actually came from. Mm-hmm. Like you can imagine, I don't know anything about that bacterium, but you could think that maybe that could be in a water supply or something like that. Like, so, it's not unheard of.
Yeah, what I was going to say to disprove it, I think, is going to immediately be disproved, because I've got the idea in my head, like the picture you painted from the reconstruction in Unsolved Mysteries of the police car with it on his windscreen. Because I was going to say, well, how would the bacteria really have got onto a windscreen of a car?
Yeah.
But then that was a reconstruction.
It was.
So and no actual documentary.
The only source I saw from that police officer was on that documentary.
Mm-hmm.
So he might have just been paid to say, this is what happened to me.
Yeah.
So they can drum it up.
Mm-hmm. So what was it, nostoc?
Nostoc.
This bacteria. And that is real. Is it local to the area?
I have no idea. If you Wikipedia star jelly, there's a table on it of different types of star jelly, and it's on there. And you're currently fact-checking me.
I am. Well, kind of.
Oh, it looks gross.
No, I'm not a fan of that.
It's just goo.
Yeah, it's...
I also love how many different forms of the word goo I've put into this script. I was like, I can't just keep writing blobs. I need to use goo, I need to use jelly, I need to use gelatinous substance.
Okay, so from what I can see straight away with nostoc is that it's green.
Well, that particular version in the picture is green.
Okay, no, true. There's loads of different ones. Nostoc is
it's a genus.
It's a family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole point is that in the name, cyanobacterium, so it's forming kind of bluey, greeny, like algae kind of appearance to it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it gives the it's a better description of the appearance of the goo than the airplane one, and it's a more realistic scenario of how it got there than the Star Jelly one.
Yeah, it's got a good origin story.
Yeah. It's the next Marvel film, not Star.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of science to it instead of just blowing up jellyfish.
Yeah.
Okay. Because before you started saying that there was like gut bacteria found in it, potential human bacteria, straight away I was like, I was half joking with the silicon thing, but that was my answer straight away. But obviously that's not the case once they found actual bacteria and stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
But this, I still don't think it's necessarily true, but it's the only explanation I'm agreeing with.
Yeah, well, I've got a few more, so
Okay.
if we want to move on to those. Along the same lines as Star Jelly, the Oakville Blobs could be an organism called slime molds. These are unrelated eukaryotic organisms that can live freely as single cells, but can also join together to form multicellular structures. When food is abundant, many slime molds exist as single-celled organisms and are light enough to be dispersed by wind or rain. When food is in short supply, however, these organisms will congregate and exhibit a gelatinous appearance. The Oakville Blobs, therefore, could have been single-celled slime molds transported by the rain, which then congregated afterwards.
Okay.
So that's another sort of sciencey, blobby theory.
Again, though, it relies on the two events occurring simultaneously, doesn't it, theory? In the sense that people have to have been ill from something else while this is happening. And this
I don't know, but slime mold could definitely be
yeah, to be fair,
harmful.
if it's mold like you think of mold, then
But like, I'm
would make
looking
sense,
at pictures of it, and none of it to me looks like it's as described. Like, there are white patches and stuff like that, but it's like...
Well, the way
I don't know.
It's described on the internet is that they're unrelated organisms. So I imagine it could be any sort of bacteria. And then the act of them joining together is what slime mold is, I think.
Okay.
So you could, in theory, have a harmful bacteria which people don't like, and then that could become a part of a slime mold.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're the moldy theories I've got, the gooey theories. I have a conspiracy theory.
Yes.
Which we always like on this show. So the real conspiracy is that Oakville was a site of a military experiment, either to test a new biological weapon or to test the possible damage of a biological attack on US citizens. So the US military has tested chemicals on their own citizens without their knowledge in the past. An example of this is Operation Large Area Coverage, or LAC. This was a US Army Chemical Corps operation which dispersed microscopic zinc-cadmium sulfide particles over the US and Canada in order to test dispersal patterns and the geographic range of chemical weapons.
Whoa, okay.
Bloody hell. What year was that?
This was in 1957, 2nd of December, and it was done along a flight path from South Dakota to Minnesota.
Jesus Christ.
So basically the idea of it is, if there's chemical weapons used in the US, we can kind of estimate how they get dispersed by this experiment.
From a strategic planning point of view, you can work out your fallout area, can't you, from that attack?
And they use, supposedly, unharmful zinc-cadmium sulfide.
Supposedly.
At the time, they thought it was harmless. But the operation was controversial, not only
they
because...
never actually tested it on anyone.
Well, this was the test.
Okay, yeah.
It was controversial not only because of the nature of using the country as an experimental laboratory, but also because there's anecdotal evidence that the use of zinc-cadmium sulfide can cause adverse health effects.
Yeah.
Right.
As for the use of the material found at Oakville, a user on Our Unresolved Mysteries posted an interesting patent that was filled in the US in the year 2000, which I will link to you now. So take a look at that. It's a little out there. The purpose of this patent was to modify the weather by dispersing an aqueous polymer into the clouds of a storm. The rain is absorbed into the polymer, forming a gelatinous substance which precipitates to the surface below, much like the Oakville Blobs. And then the purpose of this is to reduce the amount of rainfall.
So it's basically weather control?
It's weather control.
So it's basically the cannons that it's the harp cannon. It's the cannons they had at harp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I meant like the polymer firing goop cannons that they have at harp.
Yeah. Well, maybe this was the pattern which was involved in harp, and they've secretly kept it hidden.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Yeah, that shut you up, didn't it, Sean?
I mean, no. Well, look, I was thinking revisiting Harp at some point further down the line because I don't think I did it justice. There's a lot of content I feel like I missed, which I've been told by some of our viewers as well, which I do want to correct.
Well, we'll have to wait because we're talking
It'll
about blobs at the
It'll
moment.
have to wait, but it could be related. What if it's a similar sort of thing? Not necessarily Harp, but there's clearly this is a patent, and if anyone wants to do it, it looks like it's expired.
So you can steal that idea.
There you go.
Nice. Do you guys want to modify the weather? How much money would it cost to do this, do you reckon?
Fire a bit of sperm into the sky. It's not difficult.
Oh, please no.
Ugh.
You ruined it.
Someone
You ruined my fun idea. You're off the team.
You're off the team.
Yeah, so what do you think of that? Do you think it's likely? It's a bit pseudoscience-y.
Well, it is in a way, but it's literally right there. Someone's patented it.
One of the things about it, though, is that if this is a patent that is being tested the first time, then people being ill as a byproduct of it might be why the patent never went anywhere. Interestingly, when you actually open up that link, it doesn't talk about any definitive result from the test. It just says like a detailed description of the patent's details.
Yeah, I don't think it describes a test in the patent. I think it's literally just the idea of this.
Okay, so Geltech Solutions, the ones who patented it, I was wondering if...
Do they still exist?
Wait, no, they founded it in... Geltech Solutions was founded in 2006.
Ah, so following this patent.
Maybe, yeah. So maybe Geltech Solutions bought the patent off the inventor. But I was trying to get the location, basically. How far is Florida?
Oh, it's the other side of the country.
No, it's not.
From Washington, it is.
No, it's not.
There's Washington's in the northwest. And
No, it's not.
Florida's
It's
in the
northeast.
southeast. No, you're thinking of Washington, D.C.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Washington, D.C. is not in Washington. It's very confusing.
I know. I realise that mistake now. Yeah, I've been going this whole time thinking Washington, D.C.
No, it's in the state Washington.
No, Washington, got you.
By Canada.
So yeah, literally the other side of the country. So I don't know then. I'm guessing Geltech Solutions have bought the patent later on.
Well, it says here that the guy that made it, Peter Cordani, was originally the chief exec of a company called Dynomat Inc., which, according to Google, were a privately held corporation with headquarters located in Jupiter, Florida, and has been in business since 1994.
Okay, so they changed their name to Geltech Solutions then.
Uh-huh.
Because Jupiter, Florida is where Geltech Solutions have their headquarters.
So it says here, an American company, the Dynomat Corporation, developed a new product called Dino Gel that when sprayed on rain-heavy clouds, reduced the likelihood of rain.
Oh, so it's a thing they actually made?
This article actually comes from The Guardian in 2001, and it basically talks about each grain of Dino Gel powder absorbs 2,000 times its own weight in moisture and then falls to earth. So that would make sense in terms of the size of a grain of rice, maybe swollen slightly because of the water content in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it says here that Dynomat successfully tested its new product, scattering 4,000 kilograms of powder over a 1,600 meter long storm cloud. The test cost $1 million, and it. In fact, I don't actually know what the outcome was from it. Hang on, let me just quickly read down.
And no one knows if it worked because they poured powder into a cloud.
Yep.
Now, I think as much as I can see that there's a patent for it, why would there be bacteria?
Well, yeah, but again, it works on the same principle though. Like, could it have just been coincidence, or is it that actually the bit that they tested happened to be contaminated in some way because it was in the open? Like the sample that they took that found the bacteria, Alex, was it this one that was taken off? Did you say it was taken off a farm?
Yeah, it was taken from the farm residence of Dottie Hearn, but I think her daughter owns the residence, Sonny Barclift.
Because the thing that makes me think that might be significant is the fact that you spread manure on farms. Could it have been the bugs already been there?
Perhaps.
And is it a case of that the sample they happened to take showed some weird and wonderful bacteria that might be in manure?
Maybe. I couldn't say.
Come on, Sean. You must be a manure biologist.
He's a biologist of everything.
it's over my head. I feel like we're stretching a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are. That's the whole point of the debate. But I don't know. This doesn't seem as unlikely, given that link that you've sent, because that's like proof that somebody has tried to do this, and there's articles that reference the fact that they tried to get this to work. I don't think it's that inconceivable to make a link between there being a unintended consequence. So animals eating these gel polymer things, it probably was toxic. It probably did kill them. Humans maybe not ingesting them, but maybe the fact that they dropped it over such a big surface area perhaps means that it contaminated things unintentionally. Maybe it went into a river that supplied a local... Like, I keep going back to this whole, like, oh, could it have poisoned the water supply? But actually, like, discernibly it could have. How are you supposed to accurately control where rain falls when it eventually falls?
Mm-hmm.
People could have been ill by accidentally ingesting this. It could have been a case of there were traces of it on lettuce leaves that they grew on their farm, and then they ate the lettuce and they ingested it and became unwell with it. Like the risk of contamination would be so high, especially if it was being kept under the radar because it had been patented and they were testing something that might have made a significant economical impact.
Mm-hmm. But even putting that patent aside, like, it might not be that thing they were testing. Maybe they were just testing something.
Yeah.
Like, there's always that possibility. Like, it was just a military test.
Yeah.
That happened to go wrong and hurt some people and killed some animals. But yeah, that's the conspiracy, isn't it? I like that we were doing real-life sleuthing there for a bit. It became real.
Yeah, because there's actually something substantial you can get your teeth into with that one. But I'm still not buying that one.
Yeah, obviously there's no evidence for it.
No.
Specifically. But there never is with these conspiracies. It's always anecdotal evidence.
What do you think about that one, Alex?
I think it's probably some form of star jelly, like nostoc or something like that. I don't think it's the jellyfish thing. Even though that would create star jelly, I think it's probably more of a naturally forming bacteria in the area, making a variation of star jelly. And I like the idea that it's already on the floor and it rains and then makes it more visible.
Yeah, that's one of the things when it's natural like that, it makes it more believable.
Yeah. And then either it was a harmful form of bacteria or people just happened to get ill from something else. Because as you said before, it would be viral, right? In an ear infection.
Well, not always, but most commonly.
Yeah.
By far, much more likely to be just an innocuous viral infection.
Yeah. And I reckon it's been blown out of proportion by this documentary, and it was probably only these two women who got ill because of it.
Yeah, and it might just be that because of the severity of their illness in terms of them being requiring a hospital stay, it might have been that made the more significance in terms of the profile of it when it was then reported, because it was like, oh, this mystery illness that's put them in hospital for 5 days is much more dramatic than, oh, this person who had a bit of dizziness for a few hours.
Yeah, and it's the fact that it was examined in the State Department of Health as well, which makes it more high profile.
Yeah.
Right, what do you think, Stu?
So I actually kind of like the patent theory. I think that's probably what I'm gonna throw my hat on that one. I think I believe that one the most. Well, I think it just has believable elements to it. Granted, it doesn't have 100% believable elements, but I don't think any of these really strike me as being, oh, this one sounds so much more likely than the other one. This to me seems like there is a feasible application of this patent.
Sure.
That to me is just a case of do I think that this actually happened? And the answer to that is yes. I think they did probably test this gel polymer. Maybe actually they didn't test it in this way. Maybe they tested it on rain clouds over the sea or something. But I think to me, I just think when I boil it down to which of these do I think most likely happened, the patent one for me, I think, is the one that I believe. What about you, Sean?
I'm still mulling everything over. So, the patent one, I'm less inclined. But what you said then about testing it over the sea potentially makes sense. So what if it was an accident? What if they tested it over the sea, it worked too well, it stopped the rain, then it became inland, Washington, the state, isn't too far from the West Coast, is it?
No, it's a coastal state, so...
It's a coastal state, exactly, right. So the idea that the clouds would have retained the polymers and then gone over wherever and then dropped it.
Yeah, that is the purpose of the polymers, right? To stay in the clouds until it rains.
But even then, that still doesn't line up. Like the fact that it was over a couple of days.
Yeah, it could be multiple tests of it, though. Or it could just be it being kept in the clouds.
Yeah, but kept in the clouds, that can travel multiple miles in a single day, in a couple of hours. So the idea that they were over a couple of days, localized to a 20-kilometer... He did say 20 kilometers
20
squares.
mile, I think.
20 mile. Okay, so
I used freedom
roughly
units.
around about the same, right? It's not like 1,000 miles or 5 miles, right?
No.
So it's that same sort of area. The idea of it being over a couple of days, that it's perfectly located within that tiny circle, relatively. I don't... You know what? No.
Oh my God.
That is confirming it. Not confirming it, but like, that's solidify. I'm agreeing with the Nostoc theory, the idea that it's already on the ground.
Yeah, it's localized.
Yeah, and but it's already on the ground, and and the rain has made it appear in different areas. Because if you think about it, something the size of a grain of rice, half a grain of rice, you might not actually notice it. Are we talking like literally the floor is covered in this stuff, like a ball pit, or is it like here and there you'll find patches of it?
I don't really know. It hasn't been explained very well in the articles.
Ultimately, I feel like we need so much more information that the recordings of it and stuff can't provide, because it might not have been recorded that well at the time, right?
Yeah, as always with these stories. Like, if you look at the DB Cooper thing, they lost the cigarettes. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's a bit...
There's always...
But that's why it's still unresolved, right? Because all the ones they did record properly, we might already have a thing for. We've disproved that a couple of times, but I think it's that. I've got it stuck in my head that because it's over a couple of days, there's no way it could be from the clouds. The idea of that it's localized to an area and it wasn't found outside that area, I do not believe it's from the clouds.
Fair enough.
The other side of it is the plane theory, which we kind of disputed, but I personally think it's the Nostoc theory.
Fair enough. So on balance, you guys kind of agree, don't you, really, with the theories?
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but yeah.
Yeah, generally it's localized. It describes the appearance of it, probably, maybe. It can possibly describe the illness. It just seems the most realistic to me.
I mean, it's a mold, so it could definitely... That specific mold might not have been tested to see exactly what the symptoms are. If it was, to actually poison people or whatever, it could literally be instantly poisonous to animals.
Uh-huh.
I still don't understand how it spread over such an area.
Well, if it lives in that area already, and then it just swelled up after the rain, then it wouldn't have to move anywhere, would it? It would already be there.
But I'm imagining it to be like a sticky sort of mini ball things, and like it's just kind of sticking to the ground and not moving anywhere. So how has it spread? How did it get to where it was in the first place? I understand, obviously, how do plants grow? How do they spread their pollen? I guess what part of the theory actually that I've forgotten was the star jelly idea, that it would have gone from the sky and then got released, potentially. And then it was the rain that made it more visible.
I think if you're trying to think about how natural organisms spread, the weather's going to play a significant role. Every time it rains, there's going to be puddles, there's going to be rain wash, there's going to be just the spread of naturally occurring things. I think it might have just been a case of right time, right place for this to happen. And that might be part of it as well. It might just be a case of that things came together in just the right way to see it at that exact moment in the same location. And that might just be exactly how it ended up happening, where it did and why it did. But I don't know, I'm not necessarily saying that theory is far-fetched or like I disagree with most of it. I just think I kind of like the whole pattern idea, but yeah, it's just me. I'm what people think.
I'm on the same sort of ballpark. Like, I'm not disputing the other ones apart from the jellyfish one. As such,
the most popular one.
The most popular one. But the Nostoc one, just to me, feels like the most realistic, even though there is literally a patent that was made.
Yeah, I'm sure there's patents for all sorts of weather manipulation.
Definitely.
Because it's a thing that people want to do, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, for once we've come to a consensus. Well, two of us have.
No, we definitely haven't agreed.
Well, we agreed more than usual.
That is true, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a nice gooey story. And I like that it sparked the discussion.
Yeah, it was actually really good.
Even if it's fucking gross.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting. So I'm going to retire to my cloud silicon feces headquarters because I'm mastering all of it.
Describe what that looks like to me.
Lube me up, Johnny.
What is happening with this show?
I don't know.
Oh, dearie me.
I
like that.
It's cool, isn't it?
It's cool.
I don't know. Like,
are we done?
Yeah, I think we are done. I was just trying to think of another way we can finish it.
To be fair, I think that'll actually come out fine in the edit. The end.
Just my bit.
No.
Yeah, cut that bit off.
Hence the word edit. It'll be fine once we've cut out all of Sean's content.
There's just big portions which are silent. Guys, please no. Ramblings of a Madman is currently available on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. All the links are available on Twitter at Roam Podcast, that's ROAM Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!